Welcome to Inside the LeFleur Museum District, where we explore how our museums spark curiosity, strengthen communities, and make a lasting impact on education and tourism in Jackson, Mississippi. This podcast is sponsored in part by Visit Jackson. I'm Andrea Patterson, the Executive Director of the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame and Museum, and today's episode is all about the Hall of Fame, who we are, what we do, and why we tell these Mississippi sports stories and why it matters. So I am so excited for this episode. Today, we're going to take a look back at what started it all. We're going to look back over 30 years ago to how this museum came to be. And we're going to talk about the why our stories are so important, and some of those unique stories that we tell. And we're going to look at inspiring the future, what we're continuing to do to improve the museum. I can't think of a better guest to have with me today than the most decorated sports writer in Mississippi history. He's a 15-time Mississippi Sports Writer of the Year. He was the second executive director of the Sports Hall of Fame, and he's also a Hall of Famer himself. Rick Cleveland has spent decades telling Mississippi sports stories and leaving an impact on this museum and our institution. Thank you so much for joining me today, Rick.
Glad to be here. Feels like old times.
It's great to have you back in the building.
Yeah.
So I wanted to take a look at how this is 2026. We are 30 years since the Hall of Fame opened its doors in 1996. And you were a part of those initial conversations. I want to hear from you. Tell us about that phone call about the bowl of red beans and rice.
This would have been 1992 or 93. I was covering the Mississippi High School basketball championships at the Coliseum. And as I was walking in, I noticed all the Hall of Fame plaques on the concourse of the Coliseum. Some of them were faded by the sun that came through, and some of them were scratched. And I just was thinking, seems like a lousy way for our sports heroes to be remembered. And I went to the games, didn't really find anything to write about, so I wrote a column for the next day's Clarion Ledger about how we needed a better way to celebrate our great sports history. And about 3 o'clock the next afternoon, my phone rang, and it was the bright, cheery voice on the other end of the line said, "Would you hold for the commissioner?" And I thought, what have I written who have I ticked off today? What commissioner? The SEC, Conference USA, who did I tick off today? The SWAC. And it turns out the next voice on the other end of the line was this deep, gravelly, Southern accented, Mr. Cleveland, this is Jim Buck Ross. And I didn't know what was coming next. And he said, "I read your column today and I liked that idea." And then he said, "Do you want to make it happen?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I do." And he said, "Well, be in my office in 10 minutes. His office was down on High Street. I'm up on Pearl Street. And I made it in 10 minutes. And he had a plan all laid out to where we were going to have a Hall of Fame right here on this site, and it was going to take in the Dizzy Dean Museum, which the city of Jackson owned, and he was going to, I said, that sounds like a great idea, but where are we going to get the money? He said, "Don't worry about that. I got that plan." And he was going to rebid the soft drink rights to the state fairgrounds, which the agricultural commissioner is in charge of, his museum, the stadium, Mississippi Veterans Memorial Stadium, which he also controlled. And he was going to get $1 million in seed money from that. Then he was going to go to the legislature and get them to match that. And then we were going to build a museum. And sounded like a good idea to me. And I had heard all these tales about how Jim Buck Ross could get anything done in Mississippi he wanted to. And by God, it was right. He got all that done. It was amazing. And here we are. I mean, I can't, I look around and I still can't believe it happened the way it did. we formed a steering committee that many people were a part of. Michael Rubenstein, who was my predecessor here at the Hall of Fame, I was on that committee. Kyle Maloney was a big part of it, longtime supporter and board member, Mr. Baseball in Jackson, and there were many people that were part of it. But I can tell you this for sure: this place wouldn't be here if not for Jim Buck Ross.
Mm-hmm. That's what I've heard as well. And it's just a testament to how he got that done. And it also really wouldn't be here without who you mentioned, Michael Rubenstein. And often affectionately, we in the sports world call it the house that Rube built. And I just want to talk a little bit about his vision for this museum and how it was going to step into the newest and latest great technology that was available in the late 90s, and what he really saw happening here in our doors.
Well, Michael was the perfect person for it. He is got to be the most popular sportscaster in the Jackson area for sure. You know, he was a longtime sports director of WLBT, and he had a unique style. He was probably 30 years ahead of his time. He would have been great on SportsCenter. You know, he could be doing that, right? I mean, he was that talented. And he became sort of the face of this museum, and everybody knew him, you know, from his TV days. And he was also a really smart guy. And he did have a lot of vision for this place. And I think you see it here today.
I was just telling someone that a big part of our museum is the oral history component. It's the videos, it's the archive footage, it's the countless hours of interviews that Michael and so many others have set with these Hall of Famers. And, you know, we don't tell their story. They tell it here at the museum.
Right. And Michael deserves a lot of credit for that. But then so do Hap and Hilda Owen, who were with Communication Arts. And it was really their idea to get everybody that was living and involved in the Hall of Fame in some way, all the former inductees, on tape. It's
incredible.
These kiosks, that Mississippi sports history is told.
Absolutely.
By the heroes themselves on these kiosks.
When people come to visit the museum, what do you think surprises them most when they come to visit?
I think what surprises them most is just the depth of just how many areas of sports that Mississippians have played such a prominent role. I mean, they're certainly per capita in America, there's no state that has produced as many of our national and international sports heroes as Mississippi has.
I agree. I think so many times a lot of people immediately think in the South that we're football heavy and we're a very football dominant state, which of course we are. But I think about the Olympic story that we tell right here. Yeah. It's incredible. I often tell visitors that Mississippi has been represented in every single Olympics since the 1920s, and most of them bring home medals. And there's some of the stories you can't make up. No, you can't make up a Willie B. White story where this little African-American girl from Money, Mississippi, at age 16 goes and competes and wins in Australia in the Olympic Games before 80,000 people. Wow. That was more people than she'd ever thought she'd ever see. And there she is, and she's performing. I love to tell the Willie B. White story because she won a high school track meet by herself when she was 11 years old. 11, wow. And a classmate of hers was Morgan Freeman. And he wouldn't go out for track because he didn't want to get beat by a girl. That's great. One of my favorite Olympic stories, too, is the story of Ruthie Bolton and the Bolton family. She's the 16th of 20 kids. Is that right? Yeah, 20. 20. Yeah. She was
from McLean, Mississippi, just south of where I'm from, Hattiesburg. And her daddy was a Baptist preacher who raised his own crop. I mean, he was a farmer, and he had 20 kids. He had to feed them, so he grew it, and raised the chickens and all that. And Ruthie's probably, with the possible exception of Walter Payton, the most fierce competitor I've ever covered at any level. And one time I asked her where that intensity comes from, and she said, Mr. Rick, if you're one of 20 and you want to get a piece of fried chicken, you got to be tough.
I believe that. Yeah. And that toughness took her to the WNBA. It took her to the Olympic team where she won a gold medal.
Yeah, it's just a Mississippi story that you don't get everywhere.
Exactly. Well, when I think about your story and how you were involved in those early conversations at the museum, and then in 1998, your dad is inducted into the Hall of Fame, and then you become the second executive director in 2012. Then after that 10 years over, you yourself get inducted to the Hall of Fame. So you've really seen it from all the perspectives. What does that mean to you?
Oh, this place means the world to me. I mean, I've covered probably 80% of the people who are in this Hall of Fame, of the inductees. I covered them. The only ones I didn't were the ones that were around before I was, And
but your dad was probably covering some of those too.
My dad covered those guys. Yeah, so, I mean, Mississippi's home. I think what our athletes and coaches have achieved is a huge part of Mississippi history. I mean, we're good at it.
We are.
We're really good at ball. We play games. We have great athletes, and I mean, you go let's just take football. Walter Payton, Columbia, Mississippi, retired as the leading rusher and scorer in NFL history. Jerry Rice from a little place called Crawford, Mississippi, leading receiver, leading scorer now in pro football history. Brett Favre from a little place called Kiel, retired as the leading passer in NFL history and still among the top 5. You just go on and on. Steve McNair, the leading yardage gainer in college football history from a little place called Mount Olive. Archie Manning from Drew. And right now, I should say that Archie was a big part of raising the interest and money for this place to be built, because he's one of the guys we called upon, and he answered every call.
And we talk a lot about legacy here, and there's just there's such a history of legacy. I mean, you and your dad, and now your son is a sports writer, and you think of Archie was one of the original people to get this off the ground, and then a couple of years ago, his son Eli goes in. We've got sister pairs in here. We have father-son, we have father-daughter, we have husband-wife.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really about that legacy that we share.
Well, we're a small state, and we don't have the financial resources that a lot of places have. It's important here. It's part of the fabric of Mississippi. I mean, the high school Friday nights are next to Sunday morning church. That's what people do in Mississippi.
Yeah, it's religiously a part of our lives.
Yeah, Archie's, I've asked him, I remember the first time I asked him why such a small, relatively poor state can produce so many of the greatest athletes in the history of the world. And he said I think it's because that's what we do. I mean, it's important. You grow up like he did in Drew, Mississippi, going to the games on Friday night and waiting for your chance to do it, and he certainly did.
Yeah, and we so often see in sports that it teaches so much more than just the sport itself. We see these young kids learning perseverance, learning humility, learning patience, learning how to be teammates. I think a lot about how Walter Payton from Mississippi goes on to the biggest stage, and what is he most known for? Where is his namesake? It's the Walter Payton Man of the Year. It is how the league measures character is by a Mississippi man.
Yeah. So, I mean, we talked a lot about football, but look at the Boo Fair story. Mm-hmm. I mean,
one of the most incredible men I've ever had the honor to know and meet.
Yeah, and he's another one that really got involved in raising the interest level and the money for this place. And then his daughter, Margaret, was a huge part of this museum for how many years?
20 years.
20 years till she retired. There's a lot of family stuff involved.
And so still today, our doors open 6 days a week to field trips, to school groups, to the kids that come through here. You've seen that firsthand, how important it is that we're continuing to educate the young students who've never heard the name Dizzy Dean, and they didn't watch Archie Manning on the TV. They've never heard these stories before.
Yeah, well, it's every day that I came to work and there were those yellow school buses out there. That's what made it rewarding, because you had these kids coming from small towns all over Mississippi and then finding out that people from their towns were a big part of the history of this place. And it's really cool.
Absolutely. I think so too. And as you know, we just have wrapped up a $4 million building renovation, the largest of the kind since the museum opened its doors. And it really has enhanced our visitor experience when you walk in those front doors. You can find the gift shop. You can find your way around. Talk about what it's like to walk in now and see those changes.
I love the look of the place now. I really do. I kind of miss the old balls that became birdhouses.
They did. That was kind of the problem. We had to get rid of the balls because the birds took them over. But it was an iconic chapter for the museum. And I like to think this is just a new chapter. It's just the next one in the storybook.
Well, it looks great, and it looks more modern, and it's much more visitor friendly, and I applaud all of it.
Thank you. Well, we're excited about it. We're excited about the LeFleur Museum District and the way that we're partnering with the Ag Museum still to this day. Even since Jim Buck Ross made that call, we're still partners with the Ag Museum and with the Science Museum and the Children's Museum to better our Jackson area and to continue to grow this area. My
first day on the job here, they asked me to come make a speech at the Science Museum or to direct a program at the Science Museum, and I was glad to do it. But I'm standing there on camera. The TV stations are here to cover the event, and I'm, a little bit nervous because this is my first big deal as the director of the Hall of Fame. And this woman walks up to me, and she's holding a baby alligator. And that gator opened his mouth, the teeth. I was a little distracted.
A little bit. You never know when our Science Museum friends are going to bring along an animal to the exhibit.
Yeah. Are we close to having a way across?
We are. We're very excited that later this year in August of 2026, we'll be breaking ground on a pedestrian bridge that will connect the museum district over Lakeland Drive. Well, that's been a vision for a long time.
It was a vision in 2011, I know, because we were trying to get it done then. Well, I'm glad it's finally happening.
It's coming. We're so excited and so excited to continue to see it grow in the area and just bring a strong impact to Jackson and to the city.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you coming today and talking with me and all the insight that you bring to the museum and that you bring to Mississippi sports. So thank you. That's what we're about here. We're about honoring the past, celebrating the present, and inspiring the future. And that's what we do at the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame. So please come and see us. Come visit. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.